Hello and welcome. Today we're stepping back in time to an event that shook Manchester's criminal underworld to its core. An event so shocking it has been seared into the city's memory, and one that remains a grim cautionary tale. We're going back to Sunday, March 12, 2006. The place is the Brass Handles, a flat-roofed pub in the heart of Pendleton, Salford. On the surface, it's just a regular, bustling pub. The air is filled with the low hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the roar of a football match on the TV. It's half-time, and Manchester United is up 2-0 against Newcastle. For many of the regulars packed inside, it's a perfect Sunday afternoon. But for a few, this day will be anything but normal. This day, the shadows of Manchester's Gangland will step into the light and leave a trail of death that would ripple through the city for years to come. To understand what happened in the Brass Handles, you have to understand the players and the deep-seated rivalries that had long defined the city's criminal landscape. At the center of this story are three distinct groups. First, the old guard of the Salford underworld, figures like Bobby Speirs, a close friend of the man known as Salford's Mr. Big, Paul Massey. Speirs, a seasoned veteran of the streets, was a figure of respect and fear. Then there was the Totton gang from Moss Side. This was a crew known for its ruthlessness, and its founder, McLeod, was a figure all but retired from the front lines of crime, but still held immense power. And finally, the young men on the rise, a new generation seeking to make their mark. One of these was David Totton, a hardman whose burgeoning reputation was beginning to demand attention and to step on the toes of the established powers. The feud that led to this day was personal. For some reason, David Totton had become a problem for Bobby Speirs. The full story has never been made public, but police believe it stemmed from a public humiliation. Months before the shooting, Totton was refused entry to a Manchester nightclub. He tried to get in by name-dropping Speirs, who was already inside. The doorman fetched Speirs, who feigned ignorance and denied knowing Totton, leaving him to be turned away and embarrassed. It might have seemed like a harmless joke to Speirs, a way to put a cocky young man in his place. But in the world of gangland pride, this was a massive insult. Totton's response was a bold, almost provocative one. He started drinking in Speirs' local, the Brass Handles. It was a clear message, a move designed to spook his rival. And it worked. Speirs became worried. He decided the only way to deal with Totton was to have him killed. Speirs hired McLeod, the Totton crew leader, for the hit. The price was £10,000. McLeod, in turn, chose two young men to carry out the assassination. Carlton Alveranga, 20, and Richard Austin, 19. They weren't seasoned killers. They were, by all accounts, terrified. They weren't doing this for the money. Police later learned they were in debt to McLeod, and this was their way of paying it off. This was a mission they were forced to take. McLeod drove them to the pub in his Ford Mondeo. He parked nearby, waiting. His part of the job was done. It was up to the young men to walk into one of Salford's toughest pubs and carry out the hit. Inside the Brass Handles, another key player was in position. Connie Howarth, a convicted gun runner, was at the bar. She was the spotter. Her job was to keep an eye on David Totton and his friends, who were in the pub's snooker room. She was on her mobile phone, ready to send a discreet message to McLeod with Totton's precise location. A woman known as the Black Widow, she was a veteran of this world, cool and collected. As Alveranga and Austin were making their way to the pub, she was in the ladies' room, touching up her lipstick. A moment of chilling calm before the storm. At 2:45 p.m., a few minutes into the second half of the United-Newcastle game, a chilling signal went out. Totton was seated at a table, surrounded by his friends. He was right where they wanted him. Alveranga and Austin were ready. They were armed with handguns, sent into a crowded pub to kill a man they barely knew. As they entered the pub, all eyes were on the football game. But soon, all eyes would be on them. Sound of a pub door swinging open. The noise of the pub stops abruptly, replaced by the sound of gunshots, 6 in total, and screams. The soundscape becomes chaotic and loud. 6 shots. 6 times they fired into David Totton's chest. Another man, Aaron Travers, jumped in front of his friend, taking 2 bullets meant for Totton. Totton incredibly survived, but in the immediate chaos, the plan fell apart. Austin's gun jammed. The men at the table, Totton's friends, didn't run. They reacted. They turned the tables on the hitmen, literally. They upended a table, using it as a shield. And then, a moment that shocked everyone, they disarmed the would-be assassins and in a horrifying twist, shot them with their own guns. Mortally wounded, Alveranga and Austin staggered out of the pub and onto a grass verge outside. They collapsed and died there. The aftermath was a scene of utter silence. The first police on the scene found 2 bodies a few meters from the pub, but inside there was nothing. The pub was empty. The CCTV system was gone. Not a single person who had been in the pub that day would talk. The Salford Code of Omerta was at work, a wall of silence that seemed impenetrable. It was a nightmare for detectives. With no witnesses and no evidence from the scene, the case seemed destined to remain unsolved. But the police found 2 burner phones on the grass near the bodies, and from that small piece of evidence, they began to unravel the whole story. The phones were the key. One had been topped up with a loyalty card. That card led police to an incriminating web of communications between Speirs, McLeod, and Howarth, proving they were the ones who orchestrated the hit. While the 2 young men who died in the street have never had justice for their murders, the masterminds behind the hit were brought to justice. Speirs, McLeod, and Howarth were all eventually convicted of conspiracy to murder, thanks to the painstaking work of detectives who refused to be defeated by the Code of Silence. They were sentenced to life, a testament to the police's determination. The brass handles was eventually demolished, but the story of that day, the terror, the betrayal, and the shocking turn of events remains a defining moment in the history of Manchester's criminal underworld. It's a reminder of the brutal consequences of gangland ambition and a testament to the lives lost in its wake. Thanks for watching, and please like, comment, and share.